Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour, brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. I'm your host, Watkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. I say always, but last week you did a solo mission, Ed. How was your getaway?
Fantastic. Long overdue. I mean, you've gotten away more than I have during this whole thing. So that was my first time traveling, doing anything, doing jujitsu with different people. Shout out to United Legion BJJ in Florida that hosted me and my friends. Well, my buddy trains there regularly, so we were like his guests. But JD and all the crew down there that run that school appreciate the hospitality. It was definitely fun time, man, and nice to go to some place that felt a little bit closer to normal.
Welcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, glad to hear that. Glad you got away. Glad you made it back, and glad we're back doing the show together. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of action though last weekend. A lot of action this weekend. It just kind of hit us like a storm. Um, I think we should probably start off with BKFC, considering especially some of the news that came out today. Um, but looking back real quick at Knucklemania 2, uh, fun event. Watched it from start to finish. Uh, you know, they've really kind of got their groove going, to be honest with you. They're starting to sign some names. Chad Mendez made his debut. Looked outstanding, picked up a knockout win. Said it was the most fun he's ever had fighting in his entire career,
Mm-hmm.
and made good money, according to him. Mike Perry also made his debut and also picked up a decision win over Julian Lane. Same kind of thing. Said he made more money than he's made basically in any fight he's ever had. And MMA vet Luis Palomino moves to I believe it's 7-0 now in BKFC, defending his championship belt and his 155-pound championship belt, and like I said, staying undefeated in BKFC. So Christina Ferreira picked up a championship win over Britton Hart. So Britton Hart's run of, Paige and some of those other girls slowly winds down, but Ferreira is just an absolute beast. Picked her apart again, turned her into a you know meat grinder a little bit, and but another just a fun event. And then we get the news today that what Triller is now the majority owner of BKFC, according to some of the big dudes on Twitter. So
Yeah.
it should be interesting. I'm not sure what that exactly means. I think potentially it could mean more money, which is always good when you're trying to sign talent and have big events. But I guess kind of got to wait and see what that really means in the long run.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe that's something we should have saw coming, considering Mike Perry fighting in the Triller Triad event and then doing this. I know we were wondering, how he was able to do both, but I guess this answers that because now he has the option of fighting you know, in unique combat sport rules, and it makes a little bit of sense that it'd be the same people that are running the show. Um, I don't know. I mean, I know he won, but he didn't. He probably looked worse for wear than from his Triller fight, from the stuff I saw after the fact. But it's definitely. I don't know what this means. I mean, it just seems. I mean, and then Triller has a new president. I saw Yahoo Finance. There's a PR newswire that went around that they're going to have a. I forget the gentleman's name. That was the Kavanaugh, I believe. Ryan Kavanaugh was the person that runs Triller, but now they have a president, and I forget the gentleman's name. I just tweeted the article this morning, and I read it briefly, and then this news with BKFC came out. So I'm wondering what that means for Feldman. Is Feldman just going to be like I mean, are we looking at like Eric Bischoff and and Triple H type of situation where who the real owner is, but there's just these
Well, I
figurehead
think I,
owners?
I think we look more. I think we're going to see more of like a poor man's Dana White,
Mm,
basically. You know, although he's not. You know, although maybe he's not the best front man.
mm,
But one might argue Dana White wasn't early in his career either,
yeah.
or early in his couple years. So, I didn't even think about the Mike Perry combination there, but that makes sense. From an MMA fan's perspective that likes to watch BKFC, just knowing that Triller in theory has Vitor Belfort and Junior Dos Santos under contract, that obviously leads to potential
Mhm.
crossover. I can't think of all the guys signed with Triller, but obviously they have their boxing shows, and um, at one point they had Jake Paul that's moved to Showtime, but uh, just curious to see kind of how the roster maybe kind of expands a little bit now with some, like you said, some crossover fights. Guys can do
Mhm.
regular boxing, maybe do some of the triad, maybe do some BKFs, bare knuckle, it to me it's win-win if it's successful as far as financial, if there's actually financial stability, and we don't see the
Mhm.
rug pulled out from under this like we've seen countless times over the last 20 years of watching combat you know promotions come to the forefront and then slowly disappear. But I don't really see that with BKFC. They seem to be growing. They seem to be, when we talk to Wheelock and Lytle about it, they seem to kind of all be on board with it just being kind of a slow rise, and keep building and signing guys. And like as we've always said a million times, it's not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody likes the sport, likes the spectacle that is bare knuckle fighting. But it seems like they've done a pretty good job of kind of keeping within themselves. I know they're signing some big names, but it's not like we've heard them giving. They haven't signed a John Jones or somebody insane for tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
We're getting the Mendezes, the Perrys, Paige Van Zant, stuff like that. So I look forward to it, as long as again it doesn't. We don't, we just added another, chef to the kitchen, kind of like you were mentioning with the
Mhm.
who's running the show, and will there be, a streamlined, you know,
Yeah, you wonder how it's going to suffer, like with create, like as far as their creative control with the product that people are starting to like or moving forward with the product, and what changes we can expect. And I mean, are they going to jump the gun and try to do some BKFC Triller Fight Club crossover? You know what I mean? Is that something that's going to sell, or are people going to scoff at? I mean, we're all going to watch it. We've already seen that. We've all watched these things that Triller's done, and BKFC. I mean, bare knuckles not new. It's just seems to be on a more visual platform these days.
yeah, and you got everybody jumping. I know, looks like Ken Shamrock's going to bring back his event. He had one well before COVID, and looks like we might get Valor 2 from Ken Shamrock here
Mhm.
in the near future. I saw he's actually launching a Valor bare knuckle cryptocurrency. So I'm not sure how that'll that'll go, but
Everyone's got their own coin now, so
everybody's got a coin. Yeah,
that's why that market's crashing too, because it's just too much now.
it's just overwhelmed itself. But yeah, I mean, again, I like the product. I'm wearing the friggin' sweater right now. I, I I just enjoy it. It's
Mhm.
it's a for me it's a non-thinking sit back. With MMA you got a lot going on. You got there's the martial arts aspect of
I mean,
grappling.
that's probably why I prefer it over BKFC. But I definitely the other things going on in MMA kind of, I don't want to say it's exhausting me, but I've definitely had a lot of conversations recently as far as coverage and the characters covering it and just the fandom. We've talked about it on other podcasts before, but I mean, so like this for me this weekend when I got away, it was nice to get away. The only thing I did watch was Bellator because they're still doing things that I like over there. So I only caught the co-main and main event of 274. So I'm looking forward to them getting their fights going for the year. Um, but other than that, I mean, like the UFC event, I really quick. I mean, with Johnny Walker's loss, he kind of reiterated what I just said, or I'm about to reiterate what he put out in his video on his YouTube channel. I forget what his YouTube channel is, but he put out a long video because I mean, these guys get freaking knocked out and risking brain damage, and yes, that's their choice and whatever, and they're doing it. It's entertaining for us, but it's still something that they're doing in pursuit of their own passions and goals and greatness. So when a loss happens, I mean, he kind of voiced his displeasure with all the fun being made of him getting knocked, just because of the way he felt and stuff like that. And I get it. Sure, it's goofy. I mean, everybody makes fun of people looking like they're on roller skates and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But the it just seems like it's more than it used to be, from what I remember back when we were watching, in the days of Pride and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, but it's a kind of a two-edged sword. These guys jump on social media And when times are going great, they love to suck up the, the
Mhm.
admiration and the, the fanfare and stuff that comes along with having quick access to every Joe Schmo, that jumps on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And then when things go bad, it goes with the territory. Basketball players, all sports athletes have to deal with it. I would recommend that if you suffer something like that, maybe decompressing a little
Mhm.
bit, not being around Twitter, if it's something that's going to bother you. But I totally agree with him. I think people have gone to the extreme. When I first started watching the sport, when you first started watching it, like just booing a fighter was considered
Mhm.
disrespectful. You never booed anybody. You cheered everybody because everybody who stepped into the cage or in the ring had the balls the size of,
Yeah.
boulders to go in there and do it. And then it slowly
Mm.
started changing where booing became, and then you started getting the mocking in the crowd. And then social media allows for these private messages, basically, where somebody can anonymously just shoot you a message saying, how shitty you are, and that call you everything in the book. So I don't know. I don't think there's really any way around it. I think it kind of comes with the territory.
Mhm.
But I do appreciate him acknowledging the fact that, uh, that people are jackasses. you know,
Yeah, and
you know.
that's unfortunately going to be the byproduct of the sport being as big as baseball and boxing and pro wrestling or anything else out there that's more household and mainstream than MMA was in the past. So it's come to the territory, but I guess that's just me being a grumpy old man or whatever you want to call it. But I figured it'd be worth mentioning because the cool thing about it was on the flip side, Jamal Hill was humble in victory versus I saw him. I forget who he spoke to, where he said something along the lines of he knew he didn't realize how cocky he was being until his arm got bent the other way, and then when he realized, like, which is part of the maturity that comes with training in martial arts. Sometimes you realize, like, listen, I don't have to be the biggest, baddest mouth and badass in the room as long as I back it up with my performance.
Mhm.
And when I don't, I have to suffer the consequences. So, those are the stories that I think aren't written enough about what's going on in MMA these days. But I mean, again, so we got more stuff coming. So hopefully that'll change. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's gonna be flows. We get
Hmm.
news about fighters and ups and downs, but some positive stuff. Let's jump on a positive note here from that
Hmm.
event. Jim Miller picked up his
Oh yeah.
23rd win, tied for the all-time UFC uh, in the history of the UFC for wins. I believe he's now like one fight short of or one or two fights short of the 40 fights to have the most fights ever in the octagon.
Hmm.
Um, so props to that guy. I know he's from your neck of the woods.
Hmm.
Um, him and his brother jumped in this a long time ago, and it seemed like they fought on every card back then. And I used to actually kind of laugh about it because they were kind of cookie cutter guys. But then as time developed, you start to appreciate the longevity and the
Hmm.
battle, especially the some of the stuff he overcame with some of his health stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like that's so far in the past now that you just forget about it. And it just amazes that he continues to win. And he's not fighting a bunch of jobbers. He's going in there and fighting legitimate younger competition and holding his own. So props to Jim Miller. One of the positive dudes. And it's like you said, breath of fresh air when a dude's got that many fights in the octagon and you haven't
Hmm.
heard about him beating up anybody or
Yeah.
you know some of that nonsense. So that's speaking of the good in the sport, that's one of the good dudes. So props to Jim Miller, props on tying the record, and good luck on breaking that in the near future.
Hmm.
Um, you mentioned Bellator 274, Gracie versus Storley. Um, I was out last week, so we really didn't get to do many picks for this. Um, but I mean, I was impressed with Storley. I didn't expect to see exactly the show that
Hmm.
he put on. Kind of really stymied Gracie from start to finish. Um, really just outstruck him. Which when you outstrike a guy and the guy can't really take you down,
Yeah.
it turns into that. So it turns into basically a one sided, and it was basically a one sided beating that I didn't see coming like that.
Mm.
I wouldn't have necessarily not said Storley had a shot, but I wouldn't have expected the domination basically that seemed to be from start to finish in that fight.
Yeah. I mean, considering all the changes, Gracie has been making it to become more of a complete MMA fighter because unfortunately, when you have that last name in the sport, your game plan is kind of out in the open. But I predicted them striking, which was pretty much, I was away, but we did watch the co-main event and main event, and even with my the guys I was out traveling with, Jeff, who actually listens to this podcast that I travel with, Mr. Russo. Shout out to him for hanging out with me over this weekend and dealing with my drunken idiocy. But yeah, we were watching that, and it essentially was like a boxing match, and I called it that it was going to turn into a striking match because both being grappling centric fighters, I figured that happened where they canceled it out. But what I really liked that Storley did was his level changes that he used. I mean, when he went to the body, he did it as if he was doing a level change, and then would go to the body and then work his way up to the head, and that was pretty much what he did for the whole fight. And you saw when Gracie got frustrated, he actually shot first, and of course Storley sprawled out and put weight on him, and then I think he tried to pull guard in like the third or fourth round, and Storley kind of just waved him back up. It was like you said, it was a great fight. The bad part about it was, Gracie still had a reach advantage over him, so his jab still kind of marked up Storley's face. So I was a little bit like concerned for like as far as the damage he took, but I mean, what did Storley say? It's like that Midwest harder or wrestling hard or whatever, and it definitely showed, man. I mean, I didn't like Gracie trying to showboat towards the end to see if he could win favor with the judges. I think, I mean, when you're losing, trying to do stuff like that, it's only going to work against you, because when he was raising his arms and retreating, he was still retreating, and that's usually guys that are running away, unless you're, Conor McGregor, judges score against you for that.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree. I agree. But big win for Storley, 13
yeah,
and 1. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
and then that co-main event is funny because when Koreshkov did the spinning back kick and caught Chance in the ribs, the gentleman I traveled with, Mr. Russo, who called it right there. He's like, "I bet you that guy's got broken ribs." And then, of course, the day or two after the event, we see he had like three
just
broken ribs. I saw,
destroyed
yeah,
insides.
yeah. I mean, that's what's crazy is that's Koreshkov's move. How many
Hmm.
times have we seen him do a spinning back kick like that and land it? But I just the angle, it
This
was
was the
curved.
first time where
Yeah,
it was like 100%, you know,
damaging. Yeah.
fatality. Yeah, yeah. No, I
Hmm.
mean it was devastating. And then coming off that, he picks up the quick, 38-second win, and then God, I hate it because it's two of my favorite 170-ish pound fighters, but
Hmm.
quite a retirement fight for Paul Daly now coming up against Andrei Korshkov in London, Bellator London
Yeah,
in March, or maybe in May. I might be confusing the months, but
I really
yeah,
like that match too.
I mean that card's shaping up nicely now with MVP and Amasov and Lima and Jackson and now this third fight. That's going to be a banger, man. I look forward to that fight, and that's the kind of
Somebody's
fight that.
getting knocked out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and early predictions. Sadly, I lean Korshkov just because the younger fighter, but
Hmm.
man, like I said, it's just gonna suck because one of my two favorite fighters is gonna get probably laid out in that fight. But
Yeah, I feel like if Daly pressures him, if he can get past that range, because that's how, if you see this, look back at this last one, that it's the range where he was able to pull off that kick. I mean, he gets a lot of people with that, but it just happened to be he got Chance. I always mispronounce his last name, so that's why I'm using his first name. But you know, mm, he always gets him. He always gets that kick off, like as we said. But this was just a pinpoint. I don't think Daly would make that mistake though.
all right, hold on one second. I gotta shut my pup down from chewing at my couch. Yeah, no, I agree, but and Korshkov's had his ups and downs. He had a fight with Larkin that he lost a decision with a stand
Hmm.
up fight, so it's not like he's completely done. But I just think it's gonna be a good fight. What do you think about? Do you see the Piccolotti situation that came out today?
Yeah, I mean, I know he's suspended because of it.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I don't know who recorded him or what have you with the weight cutting issue, and I know fighters like to do that to kind of tell more of their story. You know, we've seen Chris Cyborg has a whole like YouTube documentary of her weight cutting, but I guess because of you know, there was they're showing his reaction after the fact during the weigh-in. I guess it's because it was something that they wish they saw, the commission wishes they saw, and they would have done something about it then. Maybe they feel like it sheds a bad light on that on them. You know, they're officiating. I'd have to read more into it, but that's just my take on when I saw that. I mean, now he's got a 6 month suspension, which I guess is good because then he can recover too after you know, everything after a fight. It's probably some time off is never bad, especially.
No, I just think that it's pretty amateur on his
Mm,
part to think that he could post that on his Instagram and it not
yeah.
be an issue. I mean, he's throwing up to make weight. I mean, again,
Hmm.
I don't really know how to say it, but it just doesn't
Yeah.
seem like the real smartest move. And you know, recording it's one thing, putting it on your Instagram page, especially after you win the fight, it's like, dude,
Yeah, I
that,
mean, and it's one of those things though. That I mean, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't in this day and age, especially when you know that's a tool fighters use to market themselves. You know what I mean? And again, to help tell their story, talk about their brand and their dedication to the sport, what have you. It's just you don't know what the reaction is going to be like until until you hit send or publish or whatever the case is. So,
yeah, no, I agree. But how about Brendan Ward too? Makes his return, picks up a win after
hmm,
his ups and downs. So, man, good event from Bellator, and I think the best thing about Bellator is that we strike back again immediately uh,
yeah, this is a good one. It's a title fight.
this weekend with a fight that both of us have talked about now for quite a while,
Hmm.
um, in Gegard Musashi and Austin Vanderford, um, for the 185-pound Bellator title,
Yeah,
in Ireland. I'm not sure
yeah.
how you
I
see
might.
that fight going. Um,
Oh man, I mean,
you know,
I really like Vanderford. I know he's very I mean, it might be. I know he said recently during fight week that he thinks his style is the worst style for Musashi, and he might have some. There might be some truth to that, but there's you know Musashi's got a ton of experience. He's got a height and reach advantage. Um, I mean, this is we're definitely going to see if this is too soon. I mean, because I definitely can see Vanderford being a champion. I don't know. I don't know if it happens this weekend. He's definitely cut from a different cloth than a lot of other fighters. Again, I've been watching him since he fought in the regionals in the square cage over at VFC when he was a welterweight. So, and he used to cut down to 170 and still fight like you know, with fresh energy on fight night. But as we bring up the fight card on Bellator.com, I mean, you can see the fans are already leaning towards Musashi with 71% of them voting that, well, somebody thinks it's going to go to a draw. I don't see that happening with the 5 rounder, but um, yeah, Musashi again, you know, Musashi's also been pretty open about. I mean, I don't know if he could probably underestimate Vanderford and get caught. You know what I mean? Vanderford's definitely pretty close as a completed mixed martial artist as we can see with these younger guys coming up. So I mean, I know we're jumping right to the main event, but I mean, that's kind of the focus for for all
it's
auto
kind of a
folks right
top
now.
heavy card. It's one
Yeah.
of those made for Ireland cards. So
Hmm.
um, it's definitely top heavy, and the main event's carrying the event for sure as far as international audience goes. Um, Masashi's just one of the all time greats. Record, 48-7-2 is
Hmm.
up there with some of the more incredible records in MMA. I said it when Vanderfort got his, kind of earned his title shot. That I believe that he is probably the bad style for Musashi. Musashi's
Hmm.
historically has always had trouble with people who can just take him down, and Vanderfort seems to be as good as almost anybody in the younger generation, like you say, at doing that and controlling his opponent.
Hmm.
Whether it's been submission underground or it's been in Bellator. Bellator shows him at 10-0 there. I show him at 11-0 on Tapology.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, you're talking about one of the up and coming guys. Like you said, the question is it too much too soon?
Hmm.
Is he going against a guy with just too many tools that's going to be able to fight off that younger generation one more time, or is this going to be a passing of the torch? Um, I lean Vanderfort just because of his
Hmm.
his wrestling pedigree, and a 3 round fight I would go Vanderfort like 90%, and it's really weird for me to say since I don't know if I've ever picked against Musasi in my entire life, um, but I think the 5 round fight might be the only chance, and I think it's gonna, this might come down to what kind of judges we have. We've seen it in the past with Musasi where he's done damage from the bottom
Hmm.
and not gotten credit for it.
Yeah.
We've seen other fighters at other times do the same thing and end up picking up a round or two here. It's hard to win a whole fight from your back, but
Yeah.
it's that key pivotal 1 or 2 rounds where it seems like you're losing because you're on your back, but when you look at it, he lands 40 elbows and you know uh, some punches and stuff like that, and some heel kicks and stuff like that. But I tend to lean Vanderfort.
Mm.
And Musasi has his off nights, and I just wonder. We're kind of due for one. I mean, I know it's with a 48-7 record, but that means about every 6 fights, 6.5 fights, you have a snoozer, and I feel like he's kind of on that run right now.
Yeah.
So I hate to say
Yeah.
it. I'm going to pick Vanderfort, and I just think it's
Hey,
I think we see a rematch, you know,
yeah.
fairly quick between the two
Yeah,
guys.
no, I mean, I'm just gonna watch it because it's a matchup that I really like. I don't want to even
Yeah.
make a pick really. Like I said, I feel like the experience could win it for Musasi, but I mean, I've been again. I'm a long time observer of Vanderfort's
Mhm.
career. From fighting up all the way up. Trying out for contender series, all that stuff, all the way up until he wound up here. And I was so happy when he wound up in Bellator. I mean, I'm not surprised that he's at a title shot, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. So it's definitely going to be a fun fight to watch. I mean, early one, just FYI, because it's in Dublin, so it's going to be on Showtime early in the.
On
What's that? The
Friday.
main card starts at 4 p.m. Eastern, so hopefully I don't miss this one. But the good thing about the Showtime is you can watch the replays pretty easy. So
Yep, I'll be having to avoid Twitter for about a 3-hour period until I get off work. I'll
yeah.
set the record, so I'll come home, be able to skip through all the you know BS between
Hmm.
fights and enjoy it. But yeah, I'll be rooting for Musasi. I mean, straight up, I'm a Musasi fan to the
Mm.
hills. But if I'm going to do this show and try to be honest, I just think it's a really tough matchup for him. And
Yeah.
um and it doesn't hurt to get that new blood. I mean, we talk, especially with Bellator.
Yeah.
Bellator, they got McKee, everything worked out with McKee.
Yeah.
In theory, you have a chance to get another undefeated
Yeah. And this is
guy
yeah.
that
That's
you
a great
develop,
point.
basically.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like you said, I mean, everyone loves to talk shit. I saw there's somebody put up a meme today. Some 163-year-old guy is alive somewhere, and people were, oh, Bellator's next signee. It's like, come on, you can't even say that anymore. Like you said, you got McKee, you got this fight happening. I mean, not for nothing. Look, I mean, if we jump to the beginning of the undercard, these two fellas aren't exactly they're babes. You know what I mean? Like they're new to the sport. Jornel Lugo. I mean, again, young hustler from the East Coast. That I remember interviewing him when he snuck his way to the media day in his first Bellator event, and look at him now. Now he's the one on the main card, 135 or main card on Showtime on the other side of the world. So yeah, that people got to stop that rhetoric with Bellator.
Well, everybody loves to jump on it because
Hmm.
of a fight that they had 10 years ago now, 8 years ago now, whatever the heck it was, and um, that gets back to the morons on Twitter. I mean, it simply does. You
Yeah.
got a guy who's like, you know, UFC only in his profile.
Hmm.
He's watching an event where like the co-main event is 44-year-old Andre Arlovsky, and in his mind he thinks it's funny to talk shit about Melvin Manhoff fighting.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it. Arlovsky's on a roll. Not all 44-year-olds are built the same,
Hmm.
and Arlovsky's been a freak of nature for 20 years now, but
Yeah.
it's just the self-awareness of it is just insane. Like, you've got him, you've got the constrictor, Oleanek. You got,
Hmm.
it wasn't long ago we had Mark Hunt, in his mid
The
40s,
the current light heavyweight champion is
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 what,
up to
42?
42 or
40,
43. Yeah.
yeah, the one of the biggest heroes of the UFC is Couture for coming back at
Hmm.
46 years old and defeating Tim Sylvia and getting the belt and having a little run and stuff. So it's just amazing that there's like I mean I think at some point we kind of got to get over the age thing. I mean I agree that Manhoff's probably maybe shouldn't be fighting anymore, and a fight with I don't know why it slips my mind. He's fighting some killer coming up. Oh,
Yoel
Romero.
Romero.
But
Yeah.
and that's the thing.
But
Like
Yoel
everybody,
Romero,
like
that's actually a pretty even fight because Yoel Romero's in his 40s too. So
age wise, it
yeah.
is. And I don't think it's a terrible fight for Manhoff. I don't, Romero hasn't shown his wrestling. So if you want
Hmm.
to, I wouldn't recommend anybody stand and bang with Melvin Manhoff. So, if you're telling me there's gonna be a fight with no takedowns, then it becomes a coin flip a lot quicker than
Yeah.
maybe the odds are going to show. Because I imagine Romero's going to be a huge favorite, but he's also had snoozers in the last few fights. So, but that's just another complaint about the morons on Twitter. I guess it's just you go
Mhm.
through. I should probably get off Twitter. I tell Johnny Walker to do it. Maybe I should do it. But uh, yeah, I just think and you got the young guys. We just saw Storley, like you said, one loss. Leah McCourt is the co-main event for this event. She's got one loss. I mean, you've got a lot of Bellator's done a good job, and you've just got the people that hold on to that. It's the Smeagol. They're holding on to that ring like UFC's got to be the best. They got to have all the best
Mhm.
fighters. We can't. I can't acknowledge the fact that you know Austin Vanderford might be able to take down and you know beat a top five guy in the UFC, or Musasi already proved he can hang with everybody in the world. Um, so it's a weird thing, but it's something that we're probably never going to get over. It goes from the top down with the UFC for 20 years of basically just kind of talking crap about everybody that's not in your organization, while then going and signing half of the guys. I mean, let's not be foolish. If Vanderfort wins this fight and was a free agent the next day, the UFC would be
Mhm.
looking to sign him. You know, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
and then the
well,
fans
maybe.
that said he was, they would. I mean, they would. He builds his name up in Bellator, and then they would take him. I mean,
I just feel like they have this weird because don't forget what happened at that FAL event where Eduardo Dundas got that highlight reel knockout and then they didn't sign him anyway.
now there
Just
might be there. I suppose that there could be something that, but Dantes is a
sour
little
grapes or
older, and
so.
yeah,
Yeah.
Dantes has been around a while though. Um, I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't want to get in the Paige Van Zant
Mm,
business again. That kind of
yeah.
comes along with signing her husband, but that's
Yeah.
neither here nor there. Hopefully, he stays in Bellator, win or lose, and he stays a top contender in the middleweight. But
But
um, a
well,
couple
let's
names that
get back.
jump
Yeah, let's get back to this Bellator two, the Dublin slash 275 card. You're saying a couple names that jump out at you?
on the prelims are actually names that jump out at me because, like I said, the main card's
Mm-hmm.
kind of shaped around Ireland. Kirill Sindelikov, Baby Fedor, returns after picking up a win in after Bellator
Mm-hmm.
Moscow. Brett Johns, former UFC fighter. There's a perfect example. 17-3. Uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
is he a world champion? Maybe not. But is he a top fighter? Certainly is. I mean,
Yeah.
he was cut from the UFC after losing to Aljamain Sterling and Pedro Munoz.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what that and sure he lost his debut fight in Bellator to a 10-1 fighter. So it
Mm-hmm.
just goes to, it goes to show that you never know. But I mean, to me, that's a good fight. He's fighting a 7-0.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm not gonna try to say his name. Kershed
Kakarov.
Krokroff. So I mean, again, the winner of that fight, either somebody's gonna be 18-0 or 18-3, and
Mm-hmm.
you start to build. So um, it's a solid card. I think for me it's prelim and then main event. The McCourt Kavanaugh fight is a
Yeah,
fun main event.
that's the
Uh,
co-main event. Kavanaugh, Sinead Kavanaugh versus Liam McCourt, which is I mean, that's got to be the get the hometown fight fans brewing, especially both of them being from Ireland, and well-known fighters from Ireland on the Bellator roster. Um, I don't know, man. I mean, Kavanaugh's like I know their records are a little bit, as far if you're looking at wins and losses, McCourt's got the edge there, but she's also seems to have a little bit of a height advantage. Fans, 74% of the fans as of right now looks like they're leaning McCourt. I mean, I don't know if that's because she's more popular or because she's actually just got more, the more technically sound fighter. I wouldn't be
I think
surprised.
there's a few things involved in
Yeah, yeah.
fan voting in that fight. I think the record is deceptive though, because if you look at
Hmm.
Kavanaugh, when you got 5 losses, but when you fought Chris Cyborg a loss, Leslie
Yeah,
Smith,
that's what I was gonna
Janae
say.
Harding,
Yeah,
Arlene Blenko, if that's 4 of your 5 losses, I mean that's
the
four of the.
people above both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Harding's right. She's right there. She's not
Hmm.
necessarily, but um, I feel like this is kind of one of those things. It looks like we're going to get probably Cyborg versus Kat Zingano in the near future. And I think if McCourt wins this fight, that'll probably be something that they might try to do. Maybe bring Cyborg out to Ireland and set it up, because you always said it's kind of like the old Japanese thing with pride.
Hmm.
You put people into a fight who, you put Japanese dudes into a fight knowing that they're probably not going to win, but if they do, then you've just created a new superstar.
Yeah.
So in theory, that could happen if McCourt were to win this fight, then fight in her home country, and then somehow
Hmm.
pull off the upset of Cyborg. You've just created a new superstar, even if it only lasts for 2 months until they have a rematch.
Mm.
You create it. You create that buzz and stuff. So I imagine Bellator's kind of leaning towards McCourt winning, because otherwise they're going to start to run out of opponents for Cyborg if she
Yeah.
continues to win.
Well,
But
I mean, here's I'm just gonna throw this out at you because this kind of came out the week that you weren't on, and I was making my way to Florida. But it looks like negotiations. I haven't heard anything new this week as far as where Kayla Harrison's going to wind up because it looks like the PFL and her have kind of hit a standstill. I mean, if I'm Viacom, Scott Coker, and Bellator, I know they have to be a little more selective in who they throw money at. But if Kayla Harrison truly wants more uh, better competition to kind of harden her iron as a MMA fighter, I feel like Bellator is the perfect place for her. I mean, we've seen she can make the weight, she can make the 145, and just like either one of these chicks against um Harrison would be make for a great headliner.
would make
Anyone,
for a better fight than
yeah.
Harrison's had in 99% of her fights she's had so
Hmm.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the people I listed Blenko, Harding, Cyborg, Leslie Smith, all those people, and Leslie Smith would
Hmm.
be undersized. But um, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It to me, it all just comes down to when you talk to Kyla Harrison, is she dedicated to cutting down to 145 pounds, every 4 months or so? You've got. I think that's got to be the main like sticking point, because she can
Hmm.
stay in PFL even if it's for a little less money, in theory, and basically kind of to coast her way to $1 million paycheck,
Yeah,
not
she could
not
be.
cutting much weight and kind of taking the easy road. And I know that you know they're prize fighters. I
Hmm.
mean, there's something to be said for that, but I
Yeah.
also understand wanting to build that resume and that legacy. And um, I think the most sense, if she goes to the UFC, the only person you really got there is you got Nunes.
Hmm.
You maybe have a blown up Holly Holm. You know, Durandamy ain't gonna want no part of.
I thought they cut the random me
Did
anyway.
they cut her? Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
I haven't heard from her in a long time, but
Yeah.
um, if she's cut, honestly, that wouldn't be a bad move for Bellator to maybe reach out to her. I know she had a relationship with Strikeforce with Scott Coker uh, prior to the UFC purchasing them, but I mean, just as far as
Mhm.
adding depth at 145 pounds,
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
it,
I want to say that if you're looking at the talent wise of for women's featherweight, has it. Like if anything, they're taking it. You know what I mean? Like there's a time when people thought Megan Anderson was going to go there before she decided she's just going to step away from fighting because she's doing fine with all the other stuff she's doing. But I just feel like there's if there is a featherweight division there's a market for a women's featherweight division, and I think Bellator kind of has it cornered right now. Whether it's on purpose or not, there's people interested in that division, and I just feel like Bellator is just a better place for it. So if Harrison, wants to go somewhere else, I know the UFC is supposed to be the top and the best of the whatever, but I just feel
not
like
not at women's 145
yeah,
pounds.
yeah,
Once you take Nunes out of the mix, it's a one woman division in UFC. Um, and it's not a it's a cyborg plus about
mhm.
6 solid co-stars in in Bellator. But yeah, I think it's definitely the place for her to go if she were to jump in there, and these would be a couple of the girls that would be on in her path. And the thing about signing with Bellator, is she could basically kind of lay out her like year schedule. She
Mhm.
could go, I want to fight her, and her. Whereas, and I think Bellator would probably be more open to kind of laying that out and showing her a pathway. Whereas, you know, the UFC is probably going to be, hey, fight this person nobody's ever heard of, and then you get a title fight. Or you just get a straight title fight, and maybe we'll ruin your career like we've done. You know, a bunch of other, Megan Anderson. I mean, it seems to me like that was maybe a little too quick to get her in there with Nunes, considering how that fight ended and
Mhm.
the result of the end of basically retiring a younger fighter who had some promise at a weight class where there's not a ton of people fighting. But yeah, I mean, try to think that I post online. There's like 61 events or something this weekend. I mean, it just is nonstop. Um, Nonstop.
Yeah,
I was scrolling
yeah.
through them and just baffled by actually how many fights there are. I know you're a proponent of Fight Pass, but my God, they've picked up a lot of events, haven't they? I didn't notice that they have dozens of events on now.
Yeah,
So
LFA 125, and I mean, that's just off the top of my head, but I
that's
mean,
that's that's the big stuff. I mean, it seems like they got stuff from Sweden and Portugal, and
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you know,
Well, that's why I said, man, I mean, people are all about ESPN Plus and getting all the UFC. I mean, I think you get more bang for your buck on Fight Pass. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I mean, I think
To
if you're
hell
just a
with
straight
Disney.
fight
To hell with
fan.
Disney and Mickey Mouse. You know what? Like, yeah, I can catch that. I can catch those old ass movies another time and all the Star Wars shit. Fuck that. I mean, I like my live events and Fight Pass. I mean, they should throw us some money or put this podcast on Fight Pass or something because I can't find a bad thing to say about them ever.
No, but I think they need to do a better job, maybe, of like kind of promoting the new stuff that they've got though too.
Hmm.
Because as someone who used to have it like me, I kind of okay. I know you have a couple events here and there. There was a time they had Pancrase, and then they kind of got rid of some stuff. And but now when I scroll through, like I said, Kaposa's schedule, you just go, oh man, that's Fight Pass.
It's on
Shoot,
Fight Pass. Yeah,
I could
yeah,
watch 16 events this weekend again.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. If you've
Stuff
got
I would have
nothing to
dreamed
do,
about a couple of years ago. Now
yeah,
it's really, and it's they haven't raised the price on it yet. Knock on would, but somehow that's managed to stay at basically what $10 a month.
yeah,
I mean that's kind of
yeah,
shocking if you think about it. They're signing all
yeah,
these new organizations and have yet to tell you that they're going up to $30 a month or
yeah. It's
some
yeah.
insane thing.
Stop,
Yeah,
stop talking
exactly.
about it. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean I think that's kind of it. Like I
yeah.
said, we saw Steve Vanderfort and just a ton of other
Yeah, I
action, and
mean,
then
I know there's another UFC fight night, right? Is there?
oh yeah. So we got Makhachev, late
And
replacement Bobby Green,
yeah,
um, who's coming off a big win. Gonna be a tough fight for Bobby Green. I see he's like a
yeah,
minus
because it's
1,000.
short notice too for him.
Short notice
But
fighting a
if he
killer.
wins, it's gonna be big for him. So
I think if he wins, I think you got to almost give him a title shot. He's picking up a fight late
yeah,
notice against a top opponent that not a lot of guys have been itching to fight.
yeah,
Uh, I think or you get he all of a sudden gets a number one contender fight against one of the real big dogs in the lightweight division. Um, whether it's the loser of Oliveira and Gagey, or the loser of Chandler and Ferguson, however they might work it, I think
hmm
you'd have to give the dude a prime time show fight. I did see that it's kind of funny. It's the first card he's headlined since like 2007 or something like that, since a King of the
yeah,
Cage card. Um, so it's kind of weird. It's a long time. We talked about it's kind of his resurgence and stuff, and
hmm
and good for him, man. I'd love to see him pull it off. We've talked about him in the past, but it's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be a
yeah.
tough one. Other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot of
No, I mean it's a lot to swallow, so we'll have plenty to talk about next week.
mm.
Hopefully, we'll get some guests lined up. I mean, again, with my time off and you were entertaining family and stuff. I mean, we can try to get back to the grind. But I mean,
Yeah.
United.
Next week is the is pre me heading to Vegas for 272.
Oh
So we got
yeah, so we got
Paulie
to do the
Masvidal and the
well,
tough enough
yeah.
Fernando Gonzalez Maki Patolo fight. So
That's right. Yeah. So make sure you check that. We interviewed Fernando for folks that listen to us. So make sure you check that podcast out on Fight Week. And yeah, and I guess we'll be doing our predictions next week for that event.
Yep, we'll do our predictions and we'll get the broadcast times and I'll get the lockdown for Tough Enough. I think it's like I said, it's I think the main card's on Fight Pass as we were talking about. So
Mhm.
waiting for that whole card to come out, knowing that the whole main card's pro fighters. I imagine it being the night before in UFC and in Vegas that there's going to be a couple more names
Mhm.
that are recognizable on that card. So look forward to that. Look forward to getting out to Vegas and Masvidal and Colby. So we'll have that to talk about next week and we'll see who the or we'll see who the Bellator 185 champ is, and where we're
Yeah.
going from there. All right. Well, till next week, fans can check us out at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, Old Head Carb on Twitch, and you can always catch our video podcast at allaccessmma.com. Thanks everybody for listening. Glad to be back this week with you, Ed, and look forward to a weekend of action and moving to
Yep.
next week.
Back to the drawing board, back to the grind. See everybody. See
Whatever it is.
y'all next week.
Good night.